take a seat over here, ma'am. Watch your steps over there. Once you're situated, try to have the microphone aim at your chin and then make sure the light is on the bottom there. All right. Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Amy Gebhardt,
And could you spell your last name for us, please?
Gebhardt.
And what is your current occupation?
I'm a forensic scientist at the North Dakota State Crime Laboratory.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that I analyze evidence for the presence of biological substances on items of evidence. I prepare reports of my findings and provide testimony as necessary to those results.
And how long have you been with the North Dakota Crime Laboratory Division?
A little over 27 years.
Okay. So going back to about 97 or so?
Yes.
Okay. You could describe the nature of your work.
I am an analyst in the DNA unit, and so I analyze evidence for the presence of biological material on those items of evidence and prepare reports of my findings and testify.
If you could describe for us your training and education.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in medical technology from Minot State University. When I was hired at the crime lab, I was hired as a drug analyst because the DNA section didn't exist at that time. When part of my training and education includes assisting in performing the validation studies and writing the policies and procedures used to start the DNA section. Under the supervision and training of my then supervisor, I successfully completed a competency exam and became a qualified DNA analyst in December of 2001.
Have you previously testified regarding DNA analysis?
Yes.
Approximately, how many times, have you previously been qualified as an expert in DNA analysis?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
I've testified 51 times, and I was qualified as an expert 26 of those times.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, I've handed you an exhibit. What is that exhibit number?
24.
Okay, and that's a 4-page exhibit?
Yes.
What is that exhibit?
This is my curriculum vitae or resume.
Does it reflect your educational and employment history?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, the state offers exhibit 24.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
Thanks. Exhibit 24 is received without objection.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer forensic scientist Amy Gebhardt as an expert in the field of DNA analysis.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
Court finds that Ms. Gebhardt is an expert in the field of DNA analysis and is so accepted.
What is DNA?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is the hereditary material that carries information about how an organism will look and function.
And what is a profile?
A profile is basically a visual representation of a person's unique pattern of DNA.
And why is that important in forensic testing?
It's important because it allows us to uniquely identify unrelated individuals in the population.
Now, are controls used in the testing process?
Yes, they are.
What is a control?
A control is a sample that is run alongside the evidence samples and it has a known and expected result.
And why are those important?
Controls are important because they ensure the accuracy and validity of the results of the question samples that have been analyzed along with those controls.
And what if those controls don't work properly?
If the controls don't work properly, the results from the evidence can't necessarily be trusted. And then the lab has the responsibility, or the analyst has the responsibility, to begin investigating what possibly could have happened, at what step, why, and how to fix that.
Is there anything about the testing process that can change the DNA type in a sample?
No.
What is a quality assurance?
Quality assurance is a program conducted by the laboratory to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the tests that the lab performs.
Are quality assurance programs in effect in your lab?
Yes, they are.
When the lab receives cases for DNA testing, what steps are taken to ensure the integrity of the evidence?
When evidence is received at the laboratory, it is assigned a unique identifying number, and it is subjected to chain of custody and secure storage.
And what is chain of custody?
Chain of custody is a process that documents the physical movement and handling of the evidence while it is at the laboratory. It provides tracking of where the evidence is stored and who has it and at what times they have custody of the evidence.
How do you make sure that a proper chain of custody is maintained?
The chain of custody is maintained by, we use a laboratory information management system, and the evidence receives barcodes when it is logged into that LIMS system, and the computer program tracks the movement of the evidence by scanning the barcode in and out of custody and in and out of storage locations.
Now, what are protocols?
Protocols are specific, a set of specific steps that must be followed while performing a particular procedure or method.
Does the lab have written protocols?
Yes, we do.
Do those protocols cover every step from receipt of evidence to the writing of reports?
Yes.
Have those protocols been approved by any agency or organization?
Yes, they have.
Is the crime lab accredited?
Yes.
By whom?
We are accredited by an organization called ANAB. The first A stands for American National Standards Institute, and the NAB is National Accreditation Board.
What does it mean to be accredited?
It means that the lab has received formal recognition for that its policies, procedures, physical building, equipment, personnel, and quality program have met certain standards.
And does your lab follow the guidelines of any organization?
Yes, we do.
Okay. How long has the North Dakota lab been performing DNA testing on forensic casework?
Since about 2001.
Okay. How are profiles generated?
When we are trying to develop a profile from evidence, there's a series of steps that we must go through. The initial step is called extraction. We need to isolate the DNA from whatever the DNA is deposited on, whether that's a swab or a towel or a sheet. After we have isolated the DNA, we need to know approximately how much DNA we have. Too much or too little DNA will not provide optimal results, and so the second step is a quantitation step. After we've obtained an approximate quantity of the DNA that has been extracted, if there is enough, if it has met the minimum quantitation threshold, it will go on to a step called amplification, which is performed by a process called PCR, or polymerase chain reaction. And basically, that step forces the DNA to copy itself. It's not changing the DNA in any way, but it is causing the DNA to make millions of copies of itself. After amplification, the sample is put on the genetic analyzer instrument, and that instrument will translate that DNA into a profile that can be interpreted and used for comparison.
After DNA analysis was completed, was a report created stating the results of analysis?
Yes, it was.
I've handed you a document labeled Exhibit 25. It should be 35 pages. Is that accurate?
Is that somebody's phone? Someone have their phone on? It should not have been on. Okay.
There are 35 pages of report and 1 blank page.
Okay. And is this a true and accurate copy of the report for the analysis for the DNA?
Yes, I believe so.
Your Honor, the state would move to enter Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Can I ask whose DNA you're talking about?
It's the report from the case, Your Honor.
Okay. A particular person's DNA?
A lot of it's going to be Anita Knutson's DNA.
Okay. Mr. Sand?
No objection, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 25 is received without objection.
Now, this report, does it accurately represent the conclusions for each one of the items that were analyzed in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a look at 1A. What is 1A?
Item 1A is a swab from the back of the knife handle.
And what can you tell us about that?
There were several attempts made at developing a profile from the knife, none of which provided a usable profile.
So does the same thing apply to 1D and 1E?
No.
Please tell us about those.
Item 1D was a swab of the front half of the knife handle, and item 1E was a swab of the blade of the knife. The profile developed from item 1D, the front half of the knife, a swab of the front half of the knife, provided a profile that matched the profile from the known sample from Anita Knutson.
So Anita Knutson's DNA was on the knife?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. What about 1G and 1H?
1G was a swab of the internal components of the knife, and 1H was a swab of the exterior of the knife handle. Item 1G, the profile developed from item 1G, the swab of the internal components of the knife, was a mixture that was determined to be too complex for comparison.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that there's an indication that there were three or more than three contributors on the knife, and the laboratory's policy is that when an analyst believes there to be more than three contributors, interpretation will not be made.
Why is that?
When you have three or four or more contributors in a mixture on a particular item, it becomes difficult to accurately assign genetic information to individual contributors due to the chances of them sharing genetic information, and it cannot be reliable statements cannot be made about potential contributors to that mixture.
Now, in the process of analysis for this case, was the screen also, was there a screen that was tested?
There was.
And was DNA pulled from that screen?
Yes.
What did that DNA show?
I believe there were 4 samples taken from the screen, 3 swabs and 1 cutting. And the profile from a swab of the top inside left edge of the screen matched the profile developed from the known sample from Anita Knutson. The same with the profile from the cutting of that was taken of the screen. It was a profile that matched the profile from the known sample from Anita Knutson. There was a swab taken of the inside of the metal screen frame that was a partial profile and a mixture. That mixture, we were able to determine a major contributor and a minor contributor, and the major profile matched the profile from the known sample from Anita Knutson. The minor profile was a partial profile and contained limited genetic information that was not suitable for comparison.
So Anita Knutson's DNA was within the cutting portion of the screen, where it was sliced?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that some of these tests were found to be too complex. Was that the term you used? It was too many contributors?
Yes.
Okay. What was that mean, that there could have been contamination at the scene, or does that tell us anything else? What does that tell us?
Objection, Your Honor, he's leading.
Sustained.
Does that tell us anything?
A mixture that's too complex for interpretation means that there are, for our laboratory's purposes, more than three contributors. And we have made the determination in our laboratory that when there's an indication of more than 3 people, we will not interpret that data.
Now, were statistical frequency calculations performed for the matches reported?
Yes.
And what is the significance of population frequencies?
Population frequencies provide significance to a match. It's one thing if I am able to tell you that the profile from A matches the profile from the subject or victim or whoever the contributor, the known person is. But it's important to substantiate that match by giving an estimate of how frequently we would expect to find the profile from the evidence in a given population. of unrelated individuals.
Did all the controls show that the tests here were performed properly?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination?
Briefly, sir. Can you hear me all right with this microphone? Okay. Thanks for coming in today.
Yes.
Can I have you flip your report to page 30? See up top there, item 17. I believe it's 17I, right?
Yes.
You know what item that is?
Yes.
What is it? Thanks.
It is fingernail clippings from Anita Knutson.
And what's found in item on page 30, 17I, right?
17I right was subjected to Y chromosomal analysis or male-specific DNA testing, and there was a partial profile developed of an unknown male.
Under her fingernail.
Under her right fingernails, yes.
Okay. And the knife that you tested, based on Mr. Nelson's questions, came back with Anita Knutson's DNA on it as well, right?
The knife that was tested, yes.
Yes. Well, you didn't test it, I'm sorry.
I did not.
I'm sorry. And that was a folding knife.
Yes.
That's what you have from the report, because this report was done by someone who's not there anymore, correct?
Correct.
That's why you're here.
Yes.
It's a folding knife.
Yes.
Had Anita's DNA on it.
Yes.
She had male DNA under her fingernail.
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any redirect, sir?
Yes, Your Honor, very briefly. Looking at the report that shows that there was male DNA under Anita's fingertips, can you tell us when that DNA was deposited?
I cannot.
So there's no way to know when that happened.
No.
At least you can't tell us.
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
That's all I got, sir.
All right. Mr. Nelson, is this witness here by subpoena?
She is, Your Honor, and she can be released.
All right. Any objections, Mr. Sand?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. You may come and go as you please. Please make sure you leave the items, though.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have another witness today, Mr. Nelson?
We do, Your Honor, but she's going to be quite lengthy. I don't know if you want to take lunch recess right now, being
Okay.
quarter to
It's quite
12.
lengthy. Again, you're thinking an hour or so?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the time is 46 minutes after 11. It's a little bit early, but I did start you at 8:30, so maybe we're okay with that. The plan would be for you for us to be in recess till 1 o'clock, at which point you would be requested to return, hopefully a few minutes before that, maybe 12:50, 12:55. While you're gone for lunch, please do not converse with any witnesses, any party, or any attorney in this case concerning any matter. Direct any questions or discuss any problems that you may have with the bailiffs. Do not read about, listen to, or view news accounts of this trial. Until you retire to deliberate your